there was only one big game of the weekend, really, in the North London derby. Arsenal looking to continue to fire towards this title under Mikel Arteta. Thomas Frank, his first North London derby experience. Spurs have been decent on the road. I think they've got the best away record in the Premier League against an Arsenal team that were in good form themselves. Rob, give us your overview on a quite stunning performance in the end and scoreline for Arsenal. Did you think that they could go into the game and win it 4-1?
No, I thought it was going to be tighter. I think these derbies are often tighter. There's often times when we think there's a superior team, and yet the derby aspect of a game just narrows that gap. Yeah. I thought it looked like that for the first 30 minutes. We've seen what Thomas Frank does with his systems. Yeah. He went with the 5-4-1. And, of course it didn't work out. We'll get into the details. But I think, you can't... we understand why he did it, given Arsenal's form, given it's away from home, given that Spurs themselves have got fair few injuries, are a little bit on the back foot. I kind of understood why he did it. Now, again, we'll speak to Spurs a little later and what they might do going forward. But I just think the quality of Arsenal came through in the 36th minute with the Mikel Merino chip over the top, and Trossard kind of takes it, gets a bit of deflection. But that was really the key moment of the game, Rob, because it's always the hardest bit is to break down a stubborn defence that's encouraged because they're keeping it tight. Arsenal looked they struggled to penetrate Spurs a little bit. And I thought Thomas Frank must have been, after 25, 30 minutes, pretty happy. Goal goes in, changes everything. And then we saw the difference of the two teams. Thomas Frank's team had to come out and play a little bit more, change the system. Abercha Azar, of course, was the top man of the day. A hat-trick for him. Could have had 4, could have had maybe even more than that. And Arsenal kind of just showed us a little bit that they're more than just set pieces and relying on set pieces. Yeah. They play in a really clever way. Mikel Arteta, Rob, needs a lot of credit, or deserves a lot of credit for subtle changes to this team that makes them build up really, really well, control possession with the game with possession. Little Martin Zubimendi, there'll be a few I want to pick out, Rob, but I think his role in the team, he's neat and tidy. He did get caught on the ball for the
goal, didn't he?
Goal.
Yeah.
But him dropping way back, Rob, in between the two central defenders, allows the fullback, Scalafiori and Jurrien Timber, to basically play like attackers. The key to this Arsenal system is that his fullbacks play like build-up midfield players and attacking creative players. And there aren't many teams that do that are constantly... Those two players, Rob, they're involved more in the attack of Arsenal than anything else. They do more attacking than defending. If you've got 2 extra attacking players out of your back 4, Rice and Zubimendi kind of play a little side to side pretty much. I mean, Rice does get forward at times, and so is Zubimendi, but the two of them really give the base for the fullbacks to get involved. And there's so much overload in the middle of the park, Rob, that we're seeing with Man City. We'll get into a little later in the podcast. But that's kind of the theme with Arsenal, mate, is that they're flooding midfield through the centre and teams are struggling to live with them.
So I'll pick 2 things up off what you said there. And one was we did the interview with Mikel Arteta after the game, Rob, and it was really interesting that he said, it was a big game. It's been international break. He said, I've had like 10 days to 2 weeks to prep for this game, which, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. He's obviously one of these really smart football minds who's thinking of different ways that he's got to challenge Spurs. And he said he probably thought that Thomas Frank would come with a back 3, which, to be honest, I wasn't so sure he would do that. But obviously, that's the way he went, bringing Danso in as an extra centre-back. But I just thought from what he said, Rob, for all that prep he's done, he's probably got 2 or 3 days with the players by the time they've returned from international duty, flying all over the world. There isn't that much time to get that work in, but they did it well. And where I sort of see the first 30 minutes, and I kind of make a little bit of a comparison to Pep City at their very best, where I know you said the game was, a little bit flat and tight, and Spurs had a bit of a shape, and 5 at the back, 4 midfield, just with Richarlison, and it was tough to break down. I almost feel at times with Arsenal's football, Rob, it's a bit like, I think there's such a belief in what they do. It's almost like, okay, we're going to have to wear these down a bit. So we're going to pass, and we're going to go down one side, and we're going to keep possession and go. And they kind of keep working the ball a bit City-esque in a certain way, where it's almost like we'll keep working till a crack appears. And once a crack appears, and that was Mourinho maybe dropping in that little space, which is really clever. You know, he's a centre midfield player anyway, so that's a nice versatility. Then you've got your Trossard, you've got your Calafioris or your Sakas flying in from wider areas. Trossard does it this time, gets a goal. But I almost feel, Rob, part of the game plan is, for certain people, we have to go through that first 30 to get a reward later. I don't think they get maybe as impatient as maybe us watching it do.
Yeah, and I think Arsenal, I mean, sometimes, there's been criticism there that they really do struggle for that penetration, Rob. And the patience is there, and it has been there. And oftentimes it's a corner kick, and it gets them out of
today there was no set pieces, was it, to be fair?
Yeah, no set pieces today, and really good football. But back on that point about the manager making a plan for the game, I mean, if you think about it, Rob, right, and I always think this with three central defenders.
Yeah.
If I'm playing against three central defenders, I really would love my striker to come away from those three because that's three players marking nobody at the back. Now, oftentimes you'll see a centre-back go in
into
all the way with that.
Yeah.
And I don't know why Spurs didn't do that. But Mourinho, we saw it a lot, Rob. Obviously, for the first goal, he's dropped in there. Nobody's with him. There's three centre-backs. Yeah. Three. If one goes in, there's still two to cover the spaces or cover any runs. So that may be the piece that he thought, Mikel Mourinho, get him to come into midfield. That leaves three at the back. I mean, it's just a numbers. It's a numbers game. They can't have three spare. Arsenal can have three spare somewhere else. And they loaded the midfield, and the quality was there. About Eze, Rob, was interesting. Of course, we can eulogise about his performance, about his goals. He said the most interesting thing afterwards in his little interview afterwards, and he was obviously thrilled, all his family there to see his goals. But I don't know if you picked up on it. He said, I've been working on getting into scoring positions. Love that. I mean, because sometimes you watch him and, he's floating around. He wants to get involved in the play, show for the ball. I just wonder if the manager and the club and coaches of Arsenal have just thought, you know what, like, you've got so much quality in finishing and little feet in tight spaces. Love you to get a bit further forward. And I think that's something that was obvious in this game, is something to watch going forward, Rob, like in subsequent games, his closeness to the front line. And I think that was a very interesting comment. A big game for Eze, big game for him, his quality and wow, the way he can sometimes glide, but getting closer to goal scoring positions. I like that.
Yeah, we talked about productivity, haven't we? Backtassers actually, he's 26, 27 years of age. This was like, I talked before the game, I did a little piece on him and I said, like, still feel there's more to come from me. He almost needs a big game and to really announce he's signing for Arsenal. I mean, doesn't get much bigger than the only Premier League hat-trick in the North London derby. It's a pretty good way to go in his first derby, Rob. But you're right in terms of, I think, the goals, the contributions, the little bit more involvement in the last third. At times, I think he can have a little bit more responsibility. Sometimes I think he can work harder to get on the ball. When they are building up through Rice and Zubimendi and the wide players, sometimes I feel like he just needs to be, that extra sharpness to go and give angles, demand the ball, get it in those areas where he can hurt people. But I do think with the way he plays and how they do, Rob, I think he gives them another option. I think there's an unpredictability about him that is just not quite like the others. It's not quite Odegaard, who's a beautiful technician. It's not, the Declan Rice. It's not Trossard, who's got those lovely little, reverse passes and the little runs. He comes, the little scoop balls over the top, the little lovely feet. He glides, as you say, past people. I think he gives Arsenal a great option. Odegaard has been missing for some time now. He hasn't necessarily been missed.
No. I'm not sure right now he gets back in the team. I love the blend of the midfield. And back onto Eze, Rob. Also, when you think about Arsenal recently, right, there's getting more and more match winners. It wasn't a Saka game today.
No.
Trossard gets his goal, but you've got another potential regular scorer potentially, and Eze, another match winner, apart from your strikers, apart from your set-piece goals. That's what Arsenal's midfield needed, Rob, wasn't it? A kind of a regular scorer. Now, again, Eze, maybe you can't consistently score like that.
That's four, isn't it? That's four, and if you get
it's a big game to do it in. Yeah, that's a big game to do it in.
It was interesting. The Bex asked us, I thought, really good question, Rob, when she said, at 26, 27, why is it taking him so long and the journey's been in? Why do we feel it's taking him so long to get to this point? England international scoring there, very much looks like he'll be part of Thomas Tuchel's team. Now holding down, commanding a place in a team that's looking to challenge a title. And I sort of said to him, Bex, that some players, in my view, we'll see that some players mature at different ages and come into their own. Sometimes you get these star kids at 17 or 18 who get in the first team, look $1 million. And sometimes by 23, 24, their career's sort of tailing, plateauing a bit. And you get somebody a little bit later, 22, 23, who's maybe been around, hasn't, and all of a sudden it sparks and you get that later development. I kind of think that Eze might be more of the latter, that, he's been around, he's seen the other side of football, not being at the glamorous top end. And right now, he's good age, in control of his body, mature, international footballer, playing with the confidence. It isn't always that, the teenage kids have the great careers all the way through.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what I would add to that as well is Crystal Palace. It's not sometimes when you're attacking flair player, Rob, and you're on a team that, recently, of course, they're doing great. Yeah. And that's maybe why he's looking great, better and better at Palace. He gets his move. If you're a really talented flair player in a team that doesn't boss games much or have that much possession, it's harder to show. It's harder to show your skills. Maybe he's not great without the ball, and he has to do a lot of that. So I think there's a couple of reasons for it. But there's no question that was a standout for him today, Rob. I don't know whether you want to get onto Spurs.
Well, let's talk who else stood out for Arsenal, and then we'll get into Spurs. Who else you kind of give a big tick to today?
I've picked out Zubamendi. Mikel Merino, I think, does a sneaky good job. Not my underappreciated performer, but he ain't far off. Clever from him. So I think we've talked enough about defensively with this team and how the fullbacks play.
Nketiah coming in, Rob.
It's steady. Yeah, it wasn't a difficult game for him, was it?
No, didn't. No.
You'd expect him to. It's pretty hard to mess that up if you're playing. I don't. Yeah, of course I want to give him credit, but he's an experienced player. Yeah. He's done a lot of things in his career already. Obviously, a big game for him at Arsenal, but he looks comfy, left-footed.
Yeah,
good on
nice
the ball.
Balance. Yeah.
Arsenal control the ball so much. It makes it hard for teams to have any possession against them.
Yeah.
Teams that have great defensive records, it isn't because they've got the best defenders a lot of the time. It's because they have the bloody ball so much. They have the ball, and other teams don't get a chance to build up or create many chances. So what about for you? Who's your star, guys, apart from the obvious?
Well, little Trossi is a little diamond, mate. That we love. He's an honorary, underappreciated player of the week.
Honorary.
I done a little. We did a little players on the rise, and I looked this week and just said, the goal he scores at Sunderland, the assists he makes, the clever little runs he plays, and I just think of him, Rob, at the start of the season. He's probably not thinking he starts in the first 11. He's probably thinking he's going to have to come up the bench. They get Madueke comes in, Martinelli's back in the side and that. But, he's another, Rob, as you say, the Odegaard, with the balance and how it's going right now, he's a starter in that Arsenal team.
Other good news for them is Noni Madueke came on. Rob. He was excellent for Arsenal. Got injured. He's now available again.
The bench
it's getting stronger and stronger. But you're right. It's going to be interesting. On that left-hand side, Trossard's made it his for now. But in that attack, of course, we know the games they've got coming up. Is it Bayern Munich they've got coming up, Robin, in Champions League?
Yeah, Bayern Munich, haven't they? Yeah.
I think it's on Wednesday, isn't it? So there's going to be some rotations. Bayern Martinelli.
Fulham. They play Fulham at home next week. Yeah.
But they're looking strong, aren't they?
They are looking strong. Let's turn it to Tottenham Hotspur, mate, because it's interesting. I was listening to the Thomas Frank press conference on the Friday. We get them in and listening to what he has to say about it. And the overriding factor was how excited he was for his first North London derby. It's like an excited kid. Couldn't wait for it to come and all that. Not sure he was quite as excited after the game. He went with the back three and the five at the back. Predominantly 4 across the midfield, 1 up front when they didn't have possession, didn't have any real threats in the first half. Richarlison scores a wonder goal, a brilliant goal. It stands on its own right, but at 3-1 didn't mean that much in the game. First of all, just explain, I think you've touched on it, Rob, that why you think he went the 3. And this is sort of, again, I try to pick up a bit of thought from some Spurs fans out there who are probably thinking, he's Spurs manager. Why? Brentford, I can understand why he does certain things. Maybe it's Spurs, or when I'm a Big Six manager of a Big Six club, should I be totally changing my whole team to suit the opposition?
I think that's the crux of this discussion, really, Rob, isn't it? It's the crux of it. We've talked this before.
Yeah.
So, in fear of repeating myself, I still don't know what the identity of the Spurs team is. Is it going to be a team that reacts to the opponent? You're talking about reactive. He's a reactive coach. He's reacting to what Arsenal are doing. And we've seen him do that before to great success. Yeah. I think what I think we'd all love to see, particularly when you're at a big club, is what are we? Let's see what we are. Let's beginner style a philosophy that here it is. I think an example would be Enzo Maresca at Chelsea.
Yeah.
Very set approach, ball dominant. That's the way they're going to play. At Spurs, there's been a bit of everything so far. Granted, there's 12 injuries at the club. Many of their best attacking players are not available.
Yeah.
Listen, you go there and he gets his 5-4-1. He keeps a clean sheet till half time.
Yeah.
Maybe gets a counter attack. Maybe gets something of it. But and to be fair, Arsenal took their chances pretty well. A little bit of deflection on the first goal.
Yeah.
Well,
both of them, I think.
So he's then on the back foot, and then there was nothing from Tottenham when he opened up a little bit. Xavi Simons, and I know he hasn't got many other options. We know Kulusevski and Maddison are out right now. Xavi Simons, mate. I mean, I don't know. I've seen very little to convince me that he's going to make them a better team going forward. Maybe he's one of them that needs time.
Yeah.
And I just. I don't want to use cliches, Rob, about Thomas Frank going into Spurs. It is a big club. He was at Brentford, them Spurs fans, if there's a few more bad results, I think they're down to 9th place in the Premier League table, Rob.
Yeah, I know.
His gravitas will start to come into the equation. Come on.
Yeah.
Take control of this club. Give us a pattern of play and something we can get used to.
I heard a really interesting argument on the radio last night, late on, and it was a couple of journalists and I think a couple of fans had phoned in. But it was an interesting suggestion. They say the kind of think the outcome was that you can manage Brighton, Bournemouth, and Brentford and be a certain manager, do things a certain way, and get certain success. Yep. But then when you move to a Big Six, and Graham Potter would be the first example, and then Earle's one of them that people are looking at, and is he can he take that next step into a Big Six club and do it? And that it then isn't just about your football tactics. There's a lot more to the job. They were talking about you've got to be good in front of the media. You've got to work the media well. You've got to know. You've got to tactics. You've got to deal with the dressing room. That's different mentality of players who are star players who are all top class internationals, etc., etc. My kind of thoughts with Thomas Frank is I think he can deal with most of the things. I think he's a brilliant communicator. He looks like a good leader of men. What's disappointed me, Rob, and suppose it brings it back towards your point, is I think he needs to. He's got no system of play. And I know that he was a bit pick and mix with Brentford. Sometimes they go long, they could play through the lines, they could drop off and counter-attack you. And I don't say he can't do those things, but I think with the Spurs team, they want to be a bit more possession-based. And, mid-blocks, Rob, and all that stuff, which are the general terms, but have the ball a little bit more.
Rob, is there any great team, great team, really big team that you can ever remember? I've just been thinking of you and talking there, that has the approach of we're going to change from week to week. Think about Arsenal teams, Man United teams, Liverpool teams,
over the
Chelsea of Mourinho, whoever it is, with a really. And I don't just want to say the champions, but
I know Earle's a similar Rob. Well, I'm not saying all big club, but he goes in. There's a defined style of play. Unai Emery goes in at Villa. Yep. After Steven Gerrard, it was a mess. No question about the style of play. Now, they don't win every game. They went on a run. But you kind of see what they are, who they are, what they're trying to do. Some days better than others. I'm just not sure that Thomas Frank has gone in. Now, maybe it could be because of the injuries, because he hasn't got the right players. He maybe needs more time. But that's probably been the most disappointing. I don't see a true identity to this Spurs team yet.
even if you said that Mikel Arteta, Rob, with his we all know what Arsenal do, and they look totally Arsenal today, but he made subtle adjustments. Thomas Frank's got to find out what his overriding philosophy, shape, system, setup, structure is, and then make his little smart adjustments
tweaks,
around it. Not have it totally different. 4-2-3-1 attack, 5-4-1 defensive. And I think that is you mentioned it, Rob. I think all we heard from Thomas Frank afterwards about lost the duels. We kept losing duels. He made a great point. When you're getting suffocated and counter-pressed, then good luck. Like when there's lots of players around your players. If his system of play enables a bit of play through some of that pressure, then everything changes when they're on the back foot. So that would be, I think we're on the same page, Rob, that we want to see a bit more of a familiar structure, that this is Tottenham, however it is, there's a zillion ways of doing it, instead of chopping and changing and players being in and out. Was it 5? Did he make 5 changes? Was that the game this weekend? I think he made 5 changes. Unless there's another game, my head might have gone there. But there's so many chop and changing, and it didn't work today. And I think a club like Spurs are going to want to see a bit more of a consistent approach, whether it's proactive, front foot, trying to demand have the ball and create and score, or a counter-attacking style, like other managers have done at all clubs, including Spurs.
Well, there was only one winner today. It was the team in red. 4-1 winners at the Emirates, and bit of work for Thomas Frank. And I think just trying to get a system in place that his players buy into, and he can start to build on over the coming time.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host of NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock.